All right, I want you to watch this first, and then I'll get into my little spiel thing. But look at this.
Máquina, veremos la velocidad de esta onda muy larga.
That was a big old rock. Let's see that again.
Máquina, veremos la velocidad de esta onda muy larga.
Holy cow. All right, so I had been obsessed with the idea of Ancient Slingers, among other things. When I first did this channel, it was supposed to be the Dust and Marble podcast, which was supposed to really be about looking at biblical stuff, but mainly just as a to look at the context for biblical things. And whenever I would get to the story of David or even the slingers in Judges, I would think, that I think a lot of us look at that and go, it's kind of lame. Like, slings seem so pedestrian and weak. But it was soon, as I was looking into that, I soon found that it is definitely not anything like that. And this is the first time I've actually seen a demonstration that really kind of showed what it could be. Like in all sorts of things like Homer and, Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey, they have people taking down people with slings. Xenophon, we have the Persians using slings to send back the Greeks. And the reason why they were so deadly, it was a specialized unit. And the velocity on these things were bananas, and the range, I think the world record is something like almost 450 meters is the range on one of these things, and the impact on those, sometimes it would be connected with archers, and people could even shoot these slings further than arrows at times, and depending on the size of these stones. And the Greeks would have these stones that would have engravings on them saying, like, take that. And basically these were like the original cannonballs. So imagine people on both sides of you starting to get smacked by these heavy stones, like as big as this container or even bigger. But just getting hit with those would have been super, super devastating. And you find them in things like this. Like this is an Assyrian relief. You can see these specialized units using slings. You can see them in Egyptian reliefs. You see them in the writings all over the Mediterranean, from obviously in the Bible, and in Greece, in Asia Minor, all the way to Iberia, Spain, the Gauls. You see it in ancient Britain, people using these slings. So it's not like the poor man's weapon. It's like a highly specialized group of people at times. So I want to go to a couple quick little things, because when people think of David and Goliath first, and think of David and go, oh yeah, he took him out with a sling. I mean, first, there are Greek writings where you can see how like slingers were the man, especially if they were deadly accurate and powerful, people to be feared. So this is maybe the earliest account we get of slingers, and I love this story. They're all in the promised land after the Exodus, and they're all established there. And then these great men of Benjamin kind of rise up against the rest of them, kind of being a stinker. And the Benjamites, they all kind of rose up to defend against the Benjamites. And obviously because of that, many people thought that the Benjamites were kind of like cut off from Israel for doing what they did. And it also makes the idea that after Judges, when they requested a king, something that the Lord was advising against through his prophet. They wanted a king, and then they said, well, I can't remember all the. I wish I remember. I wish I just read this. Basically, the idea is, I will give you your king, but you will take who I give you. And the fact that the first king that would be given to them would be a Benjamite would have been like, those are the people who are like cut off in our minds. And so Saul being a Benjamite is just so interesting. And all the tribes of Israel are just so interesting in their own right. So let me just get to this, or else this will be too long. So starting with 12, just make sure I can see it on my screen. Okay. And the tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, what wickedness is this that is done among you? And therefore deliver us the men, the children of Belial, which are of Gibeath. Belial, like the Canaanite worship of Baal and stuff, that we may put them to death and put away evil from Israel. Like Jerusalem is the land of Benjamin. But the children of Benjamin would not hearken to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. But the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities into Gibeah, to go out to battle against the children of Israel. And the children of Benjamin were numbered at that time out of the cities 26,000 men, which drew sword. And these are big dudes too. Beside the inhabitants of Gibeah, which were numbered 700 chosen men. Among all this people, and they make note of this, there were 700 chosen men left-handed. Every one could sling stones at an hair breadth and not miss. So just showing these are big men, and they don't miss, and there's 700 of them. And this is important to note because in our view, slingers are secondary to men with swords, but this is of note. And the men of Israel beside Benjamin were numbered 400,000 men that drew sword. All these were men of war. So let's go to, really quick, the big story that everyone knows, right? But I wonder if how many people read it. This is the story of David and Goliath. And I don't want to read through everything, but it's just so cool. Like, no wonder David was the man. Okay, let's start in 32. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. So instead of having these two wars totally duke it out, let's have your best man against my best man. Theirs will be this large man with a sword or whatever, and we will send out just this young man, a slinger, who had defended against bears and lions or whatever. And he won't go with armor, but he will go out with his sling and his stones. I mean, don't mean to make the pun there, but yeah, going out with his big old stones, and he became, another pun, a rock star. Anyway, let's keep going. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, but thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered him out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and the uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. And, David, even after this moment, after he becomes basically a rock star throughout all of Israel, and this starts to really freak out Saul, David is still loyal to King Saul because he is the king under under the living God, and he has faith in God. And, he keeps saying, like, hey, I'm not here to take your spot, even though it is in the writings that he's been, like, he's been anointed to eventually become a king. But he has to prove over and over, like, Saul will keep falling into David's hands, and he keeps saying, like, hey, listen, I'm not here to slay you. And David makes this big, it's such a great parallel for Jesus as he's sent out from the cities, and the people who follow David are the others who have been sent out, the meek, the diseased, the lowly, the people who are cast away. He will bring them together and kind of he will be their leader, and people become, they follow him. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's go to 38. And Saul armed David with his armor and put a helmet of brass about his head. Also, he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off. He took off this armor, and he took a staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew nearer to the Philistine. And the Philistine came up and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and of a fair countenance. And if the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword and a spear and a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. Like, perfect faith this kid has. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcass to the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God of Israel. And the assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, but the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. It came to pass that the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, and that David hasted and ran towards the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, and the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell to the face of the earth. And obviously after that, the Philistines see this, and they start running away. Their champion is dead. They flee. The men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until they came to the valley and the gates of Ekron, and the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way of Sharaim, even unto Gath and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, and he put his armor in his tent. So even though Saul, this scares people like Saul. This scared people like, shoot, why am I already blanking? Why am I already blanking on the second, not Titus, not dang it, this scared Roman emperors as well, but the one who went on the island there and kind of tutored. Man, I am so blanking on the Roman emperor. Anyway, you have people like Germanicus, who is becoming like this rock star, for fighting off the Germans in the north. Germanicus being this Roman commander, then went over to Syria, I believe, and became like a rock star over there. And everyone's like, we should follow this guy. He's way cooler than the emperor. And of course, the emperors are like, they can't have that, because what happens if someone does what Julius Caesar does and crosses the Rubicon to the north and marches on Rome? And Saul's thinking the same thing. Like, what happens if David does this? And he keeps having to say, like, no, I don't want, I'm not here to kill you and take over. And, eventually Saul does die, but basically because of his own paranoia, it kind of gets the best of him. I mean, it's a simplified version of that, but I just wanted to bring this up because, like, let's look at this.
Máquina, veremos la velocidad de esta onda muy larga.
Boom! Like, David was cool. David was cool. There are a couple big figures in the Old Testament. Moses is sort of the one who really is kind of their, like, the main event, but David's a close second. And if you could imagine what that could have looked like with David doing that sling and it sinking deep into Goliath's head, meaning there was an enormous amount of impact. It would have just reverberated back to the Philistines and to Israel, and it was just really this calcifying moment, I guess, if I could use that word. But anyway, just super cool, and I thought I would share that. And in the end, like the story of the Bible, whether it is in the Old Testament or the New Testament, is that the battle is won by the Lord, and that with faith in Him we can be magnified. Think of Samson. Think of, and even not necessarily magnify. Like think of Joshua. Think of even Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fires of the furnaces, how that's kind of like this magnification of protection. Think of Daniel. Anyway, super cool. And I just wanted to give Slingers a little bit of credit, even though I kind of digressed there. So talk to you guys soon.